Welcome back. I'm Richard RJ Eskow, and you are listening to a special edition of the Zero Hour broadcast from Netroots Nation in Detroit, Michigan. Just talking about wage theft. We're talking more broadly. I mean, this is what you guys want to talk about, right?
Yeah. Well, let me tell you, man. The real story today, in my humble view, is not income inequality. The real story is what we're doing about income inequality.
Right.
There are green shoots popping up all over this country, man. And perhaps the stoutest and the greenest is Good Jobs Nation, but you know, William Barber's doing his thing. Ajin Poo with the National Domestic Workers is doing stuff. Rock Restaurant Opportunity Center's doing good things all over this country. I was in Iowa last weekend, and they had a young woman with a group called ICC. Hey, Jamie, what does ICC stand for again? CCI. The last word is improvement. I know that, but I don't know. Is it
in Iowa?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're an awesome group.
Yeah.
Dude named Hugh Espy. He's killing it. They're working on factory farms. They're working on these big hog pens. But there's also this young woman, and you got to meet this young woman. Her name is Vanessa. She is doing exactly what the Progressive Caucus is doing, but on a city level.
All right. Let's back up a second, because this is, and we're on now. But let's back up a second and say, all right. You know, I've asked this question of a lot of people. I mean, whether it's economists or activists or whatever, Richard Trump, whoever, are the good jobs. Like, I grew up in Utica, New York, right? And Utica, it was mixed neighborhood. It was, ethnic. It was everybody had, like, they were working people. That's what it was. And you know what? On one income, people had houses. They raised kids. They had a nice neighborhood. They bought a car. They retired. They had a pension, and are those days gone?
Well, those days can be restored with some stout organization that is going on now. I mean, the fact is, in 1957, a full third of the American workforce was unionized. Another third was paid as if it was,
right.
And one person could feed a family of four. At the same time, we had segregation, we had women, and the LGBT community was suppressed. So it wasn't like nirvana, but economically speaking, American working people were in a way better spot. And I think that can be restored, but it's going to take some real work. Because, look, we didn't get into a good position by luck or largesse. We got it because people in the 30s fought for the right to organize, got unions, demanded that we have a voice on the job. So now it's time for a revival, and if they can do it then, when it was a crime to be a part of the union, certainly we can do it now when it's just a heck of a good idea.
Right, absolutely.
And I would also add, the way the American middle class was built in the 50s started in the 30s and 40s with widespread strikes and sit-downs and walkouts in the low-wage jobs at the time. Those were the steel mill jobs and the auto worker jobs. Those were the Walmart jobs of that moment.
And not too far from here, Flint, Michigan.
That's right. That's
Historic strike.
That's right. And those workers took dramatic action. And the significant thing, and the reason that we appreciate Keith's leadership, is it's not just workers in motion, but it's political leadership. And those two things work, right? Workers went on strike. President Roosevelt passed the National Labor Relations Act in response to workers striking. That added 3 million new jobs, new union members to the labor movement. But not only that, right? At the outbreak of World War II, the president said, we're going to make sure every taxpayer dollar, every contract that goes out to the private sector results in a good job. Mm-hmm. And it was those two things, right? It was workers striking and presidential and congressional leadership that created, right, the middle class that you enjoy.
Right.
So here's the thing. So the situation we're in now, it's not the weather. It's not some random act of God. It is the concerted policy initiatives of the far right that are trying to extract decent pay from hard workers. There's a reason we have record profits. Wall Street's over, 17,000 nowadays in trades. There's a reason why they've got all these offshore profits. It's because they're taking it from working people. It's because the line has been moved in a tug of war. It got pulled in the direction of the owners, and it's got to be pulled back the other way in order for us to have a fair economy.
So if I hear you guys correctly, you're saying we've done with theoretic on the broadest level. We've done this before. We know how this works. We can do it again. But now, how does that translate? You've got Good Jobs Nation. You've got Progressive Caucus in Congress. Now, how does that work together? How do you all catalyze each other, for lack of a better word? Maybe that's the right word. Maybe it's
That's
not.
a good word.
You know,
Yeah.
to say
No, that's right. There's a synergy between the two, and I can speak to, over the course of the last 2 years, low-wage workers in the fast food industry, low-wage retail workers at Walmart have gone on strike, tens of thousands, right, in the U.S. and even abroad. And in Washington, D.C., federal contract workers, right, these are fast food workers who work in the Pentagon
Yep.
or work in
Union
the
Station.
Smithsonian or the Union Station, right, have also waged 9 strikes in the past year. And so there is a demand among the people for good jobs
Yep.
and a secure future. And what the CPC has done is really amplify the voice of the voiceless, right, and move the president to act, move members of Congress to act.
But we're not in confusion about who is leading the drive for a fair economy. It is the workers. As members of Congress, these are our constituents. We're doing nothing but heeding the call of the people, which is what you're supposed to do as a member of Congress in a representative democracy. What we're doing is we're saying, what is it that you need to lead a happy life, right? To pursue happiness. And folks are saying, well, I need a good job. I need to be able to afford my bills. I need to be able to, if I'm sick or my kid's sick, I need to be able to leave the job and still come back to it and not go broke doing it. I need health care. I need these are the things that I need. So what we're saying as members of Congress is we're with you. And we in the Progressive Caucus, we see ourselves as the legislative arm of this wave of progressive action. So I didn't come up with wage theft amendments, which we've been tacking on to all these appropriation bills. Joe and Paco and the Good Jobs Nation movement came up with it, and we said, if you're doing it, we're doing it. And so we started introducing these amendments. And it's interesting because since we started introducing these amendments, the first one, there was no attention paid to it. The second one, no attention paid. Then we tacked one on to the defense appropriations bill, which is the biggest, and it passed on a recorded vote, which is a big deal because an unrecorded vote, like a voice vote,
Right.
it happens. Nobody really knows that it. But we got 20-some Republicans to vote with us on this because apparently we could find 20-some Republicans and all the Democrats to say that wage theft is bad. Well, what happened next? The U.S. Chamber of Commerce started sending letters to Congress saying vote no on the amendment. And we still passed it. We still beat them.
So if I hear you correctly, Keith Ellison, I hear you as saying, there's that apocryphal story about Franklin Roosevelt saying, I agree with you, no, go out and make me do it.
Yeah.
I hear you a little bit saying that, as saying, make us do it.
Well,
in other words,
quite frankly,
create the political pressure.
When it comes, there's Lynn Winstead, a great Minnesotan over there. So let me tell you this: we're not saying to the Good Jobs Nation, make us do it. With the Progressive Caucus is saying, what is our assignment now?
All right.
Yeah.
The progress. See, so it used to be. See, this is the value. A lot of progressives are like, they don't know what to do with a politician on their side.
Uh-huh.
They don't know what.
Right.
They're so
Right.
used to fighting politicians.
Right.
So now what's new today is that you got people, you're pushing on a door that is not locked. And so when they come to us and say, this is what we need, we say, how can we work together to get it for you? So we just do our side of it and keep running and check back
Right.
in with the Good Jobs Nation. And that's what we do.
And just to concretize that, right? I mean, over the course since May of last year, low-wage workers in Washington went on strike, right? Just to highlight that the federal government, when we think about poverty employers, we generally think about McDonald's or Walmart, but the federal government
Tell them this one.
is the largest creator of low-wage jobs in America, right?
Right.
Through contracts, grants,
It is shocking. I don't think
loans.
people know that. Yeah.
That's right. And so if we want to change the country, we have to change the way the United States government does business.
Absolutely.
Right? We as taxpayers, as workers, as members, we have to say our dollars should go to good jobs.
So let me just get this right, okay? You're saying Franklin Roosevelt said when the government creates jobs, they should be good jobs.
That's right.
Today, the government creates jobs. A lot of them aren't good jobs.
That's right. And that's why workers have been striking at the Pentagon and Union Station and the Reagan Building and the Smithsonian Museums. And what Keith and Raul Grijalva and the members of the CPC have done is amplify that, right? They said, they called on President Obama, lead by example, right? Use your executive powers in the same way that Roosevelt did. Use your executive powers to raise labor standards. And at the State of the Union, because workers struck and because the CPC, right? Keith handed a letter to the president.
Several of them.
Keith held,
He started getting sick of me.
Right.
Yeah, well.
The CPC, the CPC
That's
held,
all right, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And the CPC held hearings. Keith was on TV, right? It amplified. And at the State of the Union, the centerpiece was the president said, I am going to lead by example.
That's right.
And so where are we now with that?
So,
well, go for it.
Yeah, no, I was going to say the 1010 executive order has, it was signed. Good Jobs Nation workers were at the White House with Keith.
And that starts when, 2015?
Well, there's a implementation process.
Okay.
So it's in effect, and then depending on when contracts expire, there's contractors.
But every federal contractor will have to pay a minimum of 1010 going forward.
And by the way,
per
this
hour.
is not in any way unusual. There's a lot of other contracts where there are minimum wage requirements.
Right.
And I don't mean minimum wage like
sure.
a little bit of money. I mean like in some highway construction contracts, they got to pay like a decent amount of money. And so this is just looking out for the low wage workers. The thing about what Joe is saying is that, look, Uncle Sam should not be leading the race to the bottom.
Right.
Uncle Sam should be setting good labor standards, and that's what we believe in. And I just want to say there is another leg to this stool that must be mentioned, and that is demos. Now, they provided the intellectual heft, right? They did an important study that showed that Uncle Sam was the low-wage, the largest low-wage funder of low-wage jobs in the country, more than McDonald's or Walmart combined. And so you got the activists, you got the researchers, you got some legislators, you got the press, and we all kind of put this in a stew and kind of put it in a blender and made a smoothie. We worked together.
Now, and I'm sure there were people who said to you, well, the government's going to have to spend more money this way. But A, thank you, and B, if more people are earning better wages, more people are going to get off government assistance.
Right.
Eventually, directly or indirectly.
Thanks for bringing that up.
And then the government spends less.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right?
Well,
That's exactly
maybe Joe wants to elaborate on this a little bit, Joe. But I mean, has it ever shocked you that as people are opposing us raising the minimum wage, that the same people who are on minimum wage have to rely on government services?
Right.
Really, because Walmart, McDonald's, and some of these guys won't pay their workers enough, Uncle Sam has to.
Right.
And I think they should pay their workers right and get off the public dole.
Right.
I think, sure. Why are we giving the richest corporation in the world hundreds of millions of dollars in government taxpayer subsidies? Now, if I were a financial conservative, I would be upset about that.
No, that's right. That's right.
I'm just saying.
That's right.
Just saying.
And
just saying.
I mean, and the other part of this is we allow these companies like McDonald's to operate on military bases, to operate at Union Station, to operate at the Pentagon, right? These are lucrative contracts.
Captive audiences.
Right?
Yeah.
Lucrative contracts that we say, all right, it's okay. We'll pay you, we'll have workers paid minimum wage that then have to turn to food stamps, Section 8, right, to support their basic needs. We should, as taxpayers, demand, let's cut that off at the root and say good jobs should be the starting principle. Nobody, should be on public assistance if you're working in a federally subsidized job.
And here's another part of this, if I may.
Absolutely.
So there's a recent study that just came out indicating that when you have exorbitant CEO pay and executive pay, like really high CEO pay,
like we have now, 286 times the average worker's wage or whatever.
Well, what it does is it misaligns risk allocation, right? So if you're making all this money, now you think whatever you do is like magic, and so you don't make careful decisions for the company. And they have shown that some of the highest CEO paid companies with the highest CEO pay, do not have the highest share price. Why?
That's interesting. Yeah.
So it's better if you have some nexus between the worker and the people who manage the company.
Right.
You know, for everybody.
And that's a good segue into, where we're going next. I mean,
Which was going to be my where I was going next in this conversation.
Right on.
Was going to be to ask you where you're going
well,
next.
the truth is, at the State of the Union, right, when the president announced that he was going to issue the 1010 executive order for federal
Right.
contract workers, he started off by holding up Costco
Right.
as an example of a
Right.
good American company. Right, here is a company that pays its workers well. They have high profitability, low worker turnover. He said, we should be like Costco.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, I'm going to lead by example and do 1010. Well, the truth is, the 1010 executive order is a solid first step. First time
Right.
since Roosevelt that a president has used executive authority to raise labor standards. But the truth is, right, we should demand what the president himself said. We should be like Costco. We as taxpayers say, let's reward companies
Right.
that pay Costco living wages, right? Costco pays on average $21 an hour. 88% of its workers have health care.
Mm-hmm.
We should give a preference for companies to pay living wages and benefits.
Well, yeah.
We should give a preference to companies like Costco that allow workers to unionize. Costco doesn't interfere with workers trying to come together and have a voice at the table.
And parenthetically, I would add that we as consumers also might want to think about doing that same sort of thing.
Yes,
That I favor going to Costco
That's right.
versus
Yeah.
Walmart.
that's right.
Because I respect what Costco is doing for my economy, my society, my country.
That's right. And
Right.
this is
Right.
I would say this is the ultimate consumer campaign. If we can get the U.S. government to say we are going to invest our taxpayer dollars in companies that are more like Costco, less like Walmart.
Right.
And if we do that, the $1.3 trillion that we spend every year in contracts, loans, and grants,
Yep.
we can transform the American economy and address income inequality.
Well, the U.S. government is the biggest buyer in the world,
Mm-hmm.
right? Nobody buys more than the U.S. government. If the U.S. government sets good labor standards and demands them,
Right.
then everybody's going to have to fall in line.
And you know what? It's not like contractors are going to stop putting in bids to the U.S. government.
You better believe they'll
So-
be. They're
No,
lucrative.
these are, yeah.
They're very lucrative. I used
that's
to
right.
be in that line of work, if I
Yeah.
may confess that,
Yeah.
on a small scale.
Right.
But it's still,
Right.
they're not
and-
going to walk away. They're
and-
not going to say, oh, I don't
right.
want to do that.
And there's also, in addition to, contractors not walking away, there's a ripple effect. When the president announced the 1010,
Yep.
companies like the Gap, IKEA recently, right, said, we're going to raise the minimum wage. We're going to follow the president's example, right? Then you had the mayor of New York issue an executive order.
Right.
You had the chief of the Cherokee Nation issue an executive order. There was a ripple effect, right? When the
Seattle
president
goes
leads,
15, yeah.
right,
Seattle goes 15.
and
yeah.
it helped create a movement. And so what
I
workers,
think 15 is a good number, by the way.
Yeah,
I like
I
that
agree.
number.
yeah,
I like
15 in a
10-10.
unit.
I like 15
Yeah.
better.
15's better.
15's even better. And what the CPC and low-wage workers are talking about is, how do we actually raise the bar and say, establish that principle, right? Like, we don't need the minimum. We need much more than the minimum
Right.
if we're going to rebuild the American economy
No
and
doubt.
spread abundance.
Well, we probably also should add here, for anybody listening to us, that today's minimum wage worker is not the minimum wage worker of 30 years ago. The average age is I've seen between 29 and 33 years old. The average minimum wage worker is putting food on the table for a family.
Right,
The average minimum wage, most minimum wage workers are female.
right,
We're talking about people who need to be paid better.
right.
And I just want to say, one of the things that we have to confront here is that when you ask some folks why is the pay so low for American workers, they say, well, globalization and training. That's not true.
That's not true that's not true in the retail business.
Well, that's not true, period.
Yeah,
First of all, some of the most highly educated people I know are striking and going because they're not getting paid right. and that is the adjunct professors.
Oh
out there.
boy. Oh man.
They're on now you're
Yeah,
going to tell me
huge
they're not
issue.
trained, they're
Right.
not educated,
Yeah.
and they're getting the shaft. And then in terms of the globalization, I had a great time with a guy named Michael Summers, who's a retired labor leader in Germany. It's about how you structure your economy.
That's right.
In
Absolutely.
Germany, they have workers on the board of the company.
Right.
In Germany, everybody has to take fewer hours during a slowdown as opposed to just start laying off folks.
Right.
They have more social supports. They have a healthcare system that works for people. They have paid leave. They have paternity and maternity leave. It's just a different way of living, and so it doesn't have to be this way.
Right.
Don't let
No.
anybody tell you it has
That's
to be this way.
We believe that. And where can people go to find out more about this whole effort?
Well, we'd like people to check into the Progressive Caucus and Progressive Congress. Just go online. You can use a search engine to find us, Progressive Caucus or the Progressive Congress. And of course, we're
Good Jobs Nation.
Yeah,
And then goodjobsnation.org, and we're on Facebook as well.
may I add that this Thursday, on the 24th, that's Thursday, we're going to have a hearing on wage theft. Because
Excellent.
I don't believe my colleagues know how serious the magnitude of this problem is. That they've estimated that up to the Economic Policy Institute has estimated that like $2,600 or more dollars per year are coming out of low-wage workers' checks in theft.
Right.
So this is a whole lot of money. We can't tolerate it.
It's even when I've interviewed shift supervisors, it's even automated.
Right.
They look at it. You got too many hours on your.
Right.
You got to start deducting,
Yeah.
claiming somebody took a lunch hour when they didn't, or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
So that's great, and
Okay.
we'll keep following. Representative Keith Ellison.
All right. Thank
Joseph
you, brother.
Geevarghese from the Good
Good
Jobs
Jobs
Nation.
All right.
Thank
Thank you.
you so
Thank
much.
you.
Awesome.
We
Awesome.
appreciate it.